Before we start, I'd like to remind everyone, subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the great videos that we produce on customer success.
Thank you so much, Disha, for taking the time to come in today. I worked with Disha in 2019. She called me up to say, hey, Reed, I have this vision for what I want success plans to look like. And how do we do this maximizing value for our customers? I think there's so much opportunity. And I have yet to meet a customer success executive that's so focused on this vision and putting so many resources behind actualizing this methodology of maximizing value to customers. And so it's no doubt why she's made so much progress and so much initiatives and really like a lot of innovative approaches to not only success plans, but a whole introduction of how to work with clients to promote value in a cyclical way. So today it's really my pleasure to welcome her to show her incredible progress in that regard. Disha, why don't we start with just getting to know who you are and what your company is about?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Reed. I am super excited to come and talk to you guys here today. I just wanted to share quickly a little bit about the company so you get the context when I walk through how we've developed our success plans and the value realization framework. So New Relic is, we're a completely cloud-based enterprise-wide observability platform that provides end-to-end visibility for your web, mobile, on-premise applications. I guess in simpler terms, New Relic makes sure that when you search for a product online, you get a better response in a reasonable time frame, and your customers can successfully build out and close your shopping cart. So I guess in a way, our software makes our customer software better so they can capture more revenue. And think about how important that is in today's world where everybody is really moving to the digital way of doing business. We are about 17,000 customers worldwide. About 65% of our revenue comes from the Americas and the rest APJ and EMEA. 1,900 or so prox employees, publicly traded. Last fiscal year was $650 million revenue. Fully SaaS subscription model. So the way it works is we have user-based licenses, per user licenses, and then also consumption on data. The customer success team does own product adoption as well as retention. I thought it would be important to give the context from an organizational chart of where customer success sits. So I run the customer success organization that reports into a chief customer officer. And what we've done is we've developed a critical partnership, if you look there on the left, with the digital business strategy group that actually provide mentorship to our CSMs to become value consultants. I'll talk a little bit more about how that is done. But this was originally, and actually it is still, a pretty small group of people. They were very focused on a very high-end customers, paying us at least 7 figures, to make sure that, we can calculate the right ROI from the usage of New Relic. Bringing this partnership and the CSMs in this role now has helped us really scale this program out to really, most of our enterprise and CS managed customers. And then our chief customer officer also sponsors value through entire organization of New Relic, right? So that has helped us ensure that we have the same follow through with our partners in sales and marketing. And most importantly, all the executives, our internal leadership of New Relic is aligned to this mission. Our CSMs are literally changing the conversation with our customers to lead with business objectives, create prescriptive success plans, and lead the value realization. I think most of you who've been in these roles can say that, such a company-wide initiative only works when you have the CEO and senior leaders on board, and there's a company-wide effort with cross-organizational accountability. So I did really want to stress on the fact that anything you try to do that's this massive, you do need high-level leadership and executive sponsorship, which we got from our chief customer officer. So let's start with our coverage model. We have a high-touch model where we have designated customer success managers for all our customers who spend, at least $100K annually with us. customers. And as you can see, that makes up 75% of our revenue, but it's only 7% of our customers, right, in quantity. That also means we have a really long tail, roughly 15,000 customers that have to also be supported digitally. I'm today in this presentation going to mainly focus on our high touch model, and how we bring value realization into success plans for these enterprise grade customers. However, the work we have been putting in this segment of clearly documenting playbooks has really helped us also scale our digital workflow. So I can touch a bit on that. And if anybody has questions, I can talk about the progress we have made and more importantly, where we're going. Seen as Jdert said last year, and this was probably around early summer, we hired her and the CSM Practice organization to help us rebrand our success plans. So at that time, these were our challenges, right? Success plans, in most cases, were just an activity the CSMs did. It felt like neither the customer nor our internal account teams, got much value out of them. And I guess if anyone are in this call, if you're feeling a little bit of that pain, I'm with you. Our success plans ended up either being too tactical for the executive buyer persona, or when we tried to make it strategic, they were too high level and they didn't really connect to the end outcomes of the customer. There was no ownership between sales and CSMs, because these kind of plans work only when really the entire company is working together from that same sheet. And they were also kept in these static, Google Docs with links in Salesforce, which is a CRM. In fact, I remember once our CEO at that time, clicked on one of the links, to see the success plan for a customer that he was going to visit. And the update date on that was 9 months ago. In this world, a lot can change at a customer site in 9 months. I was literally embarrassed when he naively slacked me and asked me if this info can be trusted. At that time, I really knew we need help here. We need to do something. If success plan's not the thing, I'm totally okay to abandon this and move to something that works. So, in walks 𝘧𝘪𝑗𝑡, and we did some really good work that I'm going to share through this deck over here. So let's first focus on what we knew the problem was, right? The big root cause here was that we had to solve the customer business alignment problem that actually leads to just long time to value for the customer, eventually poor adoption and renewal rates. And I truly believe in my heart that if we make our customers succeed, we succeed. And so that alignment was important. And it is also important that you clearly define the customer's definition of success, right? Because that can be different than yours. There should not be any ambiguity. You should be able to define success and also be able to quantify it, right? That drives accountability. I actually believe success plan is kind of this social contract, if done well, between the customer and the CSM relationship. It's not just a pretty plan that you present at the kickoff or at the QBRs, right? It really needs to drive activities that one place we all should work together. And that was the vision. We realized we actually need a very prescriptive framework that every CSM can implement in every account they cover. And eventually can be digitized as well for our mid-market and long-term customers.
Yeah, Disha, I think that was the vision that you came to me in 2019 and completely blew me away. I was like, whoa, there's such a big opportunity here. All right, so what was the next step? So once you've identified what was the issue and what was the vision, what have you done next?
Yeah, so let's look at this next slide of what you guys helped us do. This CSM practice team, this is maybe a month or a couple of months work of a really internal and external stakeholder surveys to put together this plan and provide feedback on what we need to change or implement and what we need to really prioritize. Because changing the success plan wasn't just changing the template of how you write success plans, right? It's just the culture and the process and really everything around it that makes this work. So, everything in bold here is basically what we've implemented since, and, maybe last, 1.5 years or so. We have very clearly defined value playbooks. That was kind of, as you see, that first point over there. it was really important to have sales and our pre-sales or our technical sales team, do enablement sessions with them, roadshows with them, to implement this rebranding of the CSM roles and success plan, along with the required handoff templates. Because again, it does start at the buyer journey, before you move it to the user journey. So all of that needed to be aligned. Over here on the right, you kind of see a specific implementation plan for our services team, as well as rebranding the success plan. And the big investment that we've made this year is also to implement a CS tool. So I'll talk a little bit about how that is helping.
So we have a couple of questions about, the original state or just about your customer success team in general. First one is from Simon McGrath. He asks, was there a trend analysis? Have you seen correlation between low adoption and lower renewal rates?
So, and when we do our customer health scorecards or even risk analysis, that is the data we have available to us. And it's really an early sign of risk when adoption is not going as planned. We actually come up with a maturity type of a map, which walks through, like in year one or 2 quarters after renewal, where do we expect the adoption of a customer to be? And if it's below that threshold, we automatically put them at risk. We need to enable the customer more, do more training session, offer free services to help them adopt. Because that can, if you're not adopting full capabilities, the deeper capabilities of the product, obviously the customer's not getting the full value. But secondly, I think this is true in our market, definitely, you're also at competitive risk. The features and functions of your product that make you stand apart, the sticky features, you want to make sure customers are using, that your competitors can just, say that they can do it as well. So I definitely think that's very important to measure.
And then Beth from Delphix had a question about, when do your CSMs engage in the customer journey? And if they are defining and driving outcomes, do they start in the sales cycle or post-sales?
Yeah, I have a slide for that, so I can touch a little bit more on that. We do start a little bit before the actual contract is signed, so I can talk about that.
All right, so what have you built?
So let me walk through this, and probably people who don't work at Relic, it's just not very intuitive here. But, the top part here are the typical steps in the journey. Identify and align the customer's business objectives. Then you want to also map those objectives to specific work streams. Then you actually want to execute on the work streams. And, you want to make sure that you deliver the measured outcome in a reasonable time frame. And typically, you want to have that time frame not really long, that it takes a year to measure that outcome. You need to break that down. At least that's what we've done, into quarterly or even, smaller outcome sort of based work streams.
This was one of the things that we noted back in 2019. I mean, New Relic already had a process, it just didn't work. And so one of the recommendations were to actually split the recommendations into shorter cycles. And I think back then we recommended something like 3 months and then a long-term vision of a 1 year. The 3 month you would introduce to someone that's a bit more tactical, like the project lead, but then the executive sponsor, you might want to share a longer term roadmap of customer success plan so that they can buy into a vision that goes beyond the renewal date to ensure the renewal is signed up. So what is a short cycle for you for a success plan these days?
So you're completely right. What was easy to do that time, and when you joined, what the CSMs would do is they would probably read the company's 10K or their annual statements and have this large vision as part of this, business objective or business goals that we required in our success plans. But then it never really translated to how they're using our product and how we're delivering outcomes that then is like actually moving these business objectives. When you have them at too high level, it's just impossible to show that. Or what ended up happening is if we had some really lofty thing, right? That, we're going to help you get X percentage of saving for a move to your from an on-premise environment to cloud environment, just for example. So that's usually a multi-year project for big enterprise companies. And when you have those kind of goals, like that means for 2 years, you really can't show any value. So it was really important to have these broken down. So what we came up with is, as you see kind of these 4 quadrants here, and we really wanted to make this process super easy for our CSMs to follow. Because if any of you have tried to do this, it's not very simple. Like you can't just go to your customers and ask them, oh, give us your KPIs or tell us how you measure success. I mean, it really needs to be a discovery, a smart way to asking questions and getting that information. So through our experience, what we find is that there are 4 major types of business outcomes that we can help our customers achieve, 2 of which, the top 2 are aligned to revenue generation. So where we, through that customer experience quadrant, innovation and growth, our customer can get more revenue. And then the bottom 2 are aligned with reducing risk and reducing spend. So giving this kind of framework to our customer, to our CSMs, really made this process very easy. But the thing that has taken tremendous amount of work and really cross-functional collaboration is that this is not just sort of there, but it has, each of these quadrants has a lot of detail behind it, right? So it's a collection of use cases that align to each value quadrant. And then each of these use cases represents not just how our customers can use our product, but also the people and the process required to adopt and derive value, right? So value ultimately is derived by measuring and improving behavior. So this is where we found that the CSMs go for our customers, not just being like specific product experts or advocates, but really to a business consultant. And that was the shift we wanted to do, right? It's not a New Relic CSM that they can go to for tactical questions, escalations, but we can consult you on how we want to implement observability and just monitoring culture and DevOps culture across our company. So that was the vision of taking our CSMs to that consultative role. And we also have relevant KPIs for each of these quadrants, and we provide instructions on how to track the movement of these KPIs and growth of these KPIs over time. And then finally, how we correlate the KPIs to the improvement in the business outcome. So that end goal has to be very specific, money earned or money saved, right? It comes down to that dollar value in the end. So when it comes to renewal for a 6 or 7 figure enterprise customer, you really need to show that. And then at the end of the day, this helps our customers, right? We know that the work we do is in service to our customers' objectives. We aren't just doing random tactical things. We are aligned to the KPIs of our customers. That's how we create internal champions and internal advocates. And, our customers understand the value of their investment with us.
Disha, we have a few questions for you. Really great questions, actually. And I'd like to start with Rob Stevens.
My name is Rob Stevens. I'm the Director of Customer Success at a company called Legwork here in the Seattle area. So my question is, do your CSMs coach their point person on selling the value up within their own organization, or do you have the CSMs focus all of their efforts on communicating that value even up through the executive ranks through EBRs and things like that?
No, totally. Having the most successful engagements I have seen is when we've had the champion on board with us, right? The customer champion is actually, in some of these business reviews we've been, they feel like they're part of our company because they're really advocating for us, talking through how they have been able to be successful in their initiatives, by using our product. So that is definitely super important to identify that champion, make him successful. I think in the beginning, to earn that trust, it's important to, and that's the whole discovery, right? What makes them successful in their roles, help them achieve that, and they will, just human nature, really help you adopt your product, with others. And in fact, in a lot of cases, we we get to that VP or that C level, and get them in the business reviews, because it's a champion who's advocating for it.
So nice to meet you. I'm Sherrod Patching. I lead the CSM motion at GitLab. So we call them TAMs, but it's a CSM motion, including high touch, similar to this. What is the process that you went through, if you can give it even high level, of getting to the KPIs? We're also in the DevOps space, as you may know, and find that oftentimes our customers struggle to articulate kind of KPIs. Yeah. So any insight that you can give?
Yeah, it's definitely a long history of how we've implemented this. So I'd mentioned our business value services group. That's a peer organization, also reporting into our CCO. They've always engaged at really a top tier, that 1% customers. So the people in that group are actual practitioners, right, who ran technical operations organization, who've really done the jobs that our customer executives are doing, know what makes their enterprises successful. And we've hired those people for specific industry verticals as well. So we have someone who comes specifically from the retail section, or let's say travel industry. And so having that data, as this is sort of a matter of time as we walk through some of our high-end customers, that information that was built for them to show them value, has then been reused and become scalable. The change we've made by putting them in this 4 quadrants is it's helped make it scalable and really coach and guide our CSMs through this to do it for a large number of customers. It was a really high lift or heavy lift with a bunch of people working together, when it was, originally designed. So yeah, I think that's kind of basically where we came up. But you're completely right. Like, there are times we walk into our customers, talk about how you measure success, and they don't know, right?
No.
So giving them those specific KPIs, actually even makes, builds trust and brings us from this vendor to that partner role with our customer as well. So so
as you scale this out, you're presenting the KPIs to them of customers like you track these things and almost leading the witness on what to measure.
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
And I think you can see in some of these, like I have the KPIs mentioned, it's operational agility, MTT activity, time to resolve. We double click on that, and there are multiple KPIs broken down in every work stream that we've identified, how to measure the KPIs as well, how to benchmark, and that is again important, because not everything, especially with our customers, and not just for a long time, you get all the data in New Relic to measure them. So we have to work with them to get that data from their other system, benchmark it, and then as the product, show that improvement.
Interesting. Thank you.
My name is Keiko. I'm a director of customer training at Liquid Planner. And my question is, you talked about this mindset shift to get your CSMs to think of themselves as business consultants. And I think that's really interesting. How did you help your CSMs approach that, get, prepare to have that mindset and be less tactical and more of a business consultant?
Yeah, and a lot of this actually even started with a chief customer officer coming in and saying, my 2 big initiatives is, one is we're making sure we're going to have a technical account manager, like, there's a practitioner piece where a TAM is going to be engaged, enabling all our practitioners, because our end users are sort of developers of companies. And the equal priority is we want to have that executive buyer alignment, and the CSMs are going to run that. So it really came from that top that, hey, CSM, your role is to have that executive buyer alignment and do what you need to do to build that skill set. And that's where we devised this plan of pairing our CSMs up with our digital so business value partners, or what I mentioned, that we have that small group who are really been doing this for years, but really at our top customers. So every CSM is actually coached by a BDS consultant, and we really also presented this to our CSMs as this is sort of a skill set that is going to be very valuable to you. You're learning, and it's marketable skill set. It takes you upskills your experience. And so yeah, it was definitely an exciting thing, but it was a a very deliberate effort that you need to upskill yourself and be more strategic.
All right. So we're going to move on.
Yeah, this is just sort of the assets we created. So along with standardized process, we also need standardized content. So we revamped our success plan definition to provide value for our customers, not just internal value, right? The success plan usually had just become this, internal document or, what are the work streams, what work are we doing at the customer? But, we focused on making sure that this is an external document for our customers. So we started narrowing down the core areas where we know that our customers glean the most value from and create a more simplified customer-centric plan. So we wanted to keep it very simple. There's focus on aligned goals, and then those goals should have work streams and to achieve those goals, and then measure time to value, specific details on how to measure that value, and then accountability, specifically around engagement, stakeholder governance, like kind of ensuring both from New Relic and the customer stakeholders who's accountable for what. So there are a few slides that you see your assets and sort of how you track these work streams, who's responsible, the timeline, goals, etc. So these are some of the templated pages here that you see. Another important change is that these are not static anymore. Yeah, I talked about how that was a big challenge early on. So now our success plan don't live in these kind of static decks. They actually live in our CS tool. Whatever tool you have, I think it's important that it is dynamic and in a place that's updated, and it's just part of the daily workflow of your CSM and, quite frankly, the account team that's working with the customer, because an enterprise customer, you usually have multiple people touching that customers, that they are updating these plans. So based on our segment, some of these plans get updated either bi-weekly or monthly.
Hi, my name is Pankaj Arora. I work as a Customer Success Program Manager at 𝘕𝘱𝘱𝘐𝑚𝑝rovada. We have implemented scorecards this year, and we are enhancing it, but our plan is to use success plans next year. So I was wondering if you have any top 3 tips for a company or for us who are in the same journey to implement success plans, any top 3 tips to, for us to kind of keep in mind?
I think number one, keep it simple. It is important that you don't make this boil the ocean, that everything should be in a success plan. That's what our success plans had become. And then, it took us more work to bring it down to the basics. So I think understanding who your users or your audience of the success plan is, both at the customer side and within your company, is important. So you want to target your success plan and maybe pick that segment, right? So if the way we had, our users are super technical developers, they want to get tactical, but they are not the buyers, right? The buyers are the CIOs and the CTOs, and so we wanted to align our customer success plan towards that persona. So make sure you understand who that persona is. And then, I think that piece that I talked about is, you want to design it such that it doesn't become a static thing that somebody just looks at, maybe when you have a, executive business review, once in 6 months or once in a quarter. You want to figure out how in your day-to-day CSM workflow and process this is getting updated so it stays relevant, right? It becomes that piece, like an important asset that the CSMs update and get their work done through.
Let's go over the customer handshake and the journey that you changed, really the life cycle that you changed in order to elevate the success plan initiatives and methodologies within your organization, Disha.
Yeah, so this is all great to get your CSMs and sort of the buyer journeys aligned. But if you really want your success plans to be driven by the customer's business goal, it is important that this same framework is adopted in a pre-sales cycle too, right? So once that customer signs that dotted line, their journey continues, right? It doesn't abruptly change. Your sales is talking about getting value through some different framework, and as soon as they sign, now we start talking about this 4 quadrants. So what's important is that it is aligned, right from the pre-sales journey. And then so there's been work done there as well to make sure that our POCs, data pre-sales are showing, also show value and track KPIs in that same quadrant, that 4-quadrant framework that I'd shown earlier, because they are doing a lot of discovery about the customer goals and pain points and why they're buying a product. So all of that has to be put in that same context so that CSMs can pick up and take it further. And so that handshake, and we don't call it the handoff, the handshake is in the SaaS world, pre-sales, post-sales, it really doesn't exist, right? It's a continuous cycle. So, when the customer moves from the sales, the buyer journey to the user journey, so as the deal closes, there's this handshake survey that goes out to their sales team. We actually do it like before the deal closes, right? Where the portion is still not closed, but it's in commit. And so the sales team that at that time should start thinking about, how we're going to support this customer. They get this survey. Once that survey is completed, it comes to, our customer success managers to review and respond and assign resources sort of based on the questionnaire there, what the segment is, how complex account is, how many resources we need. After that, it leads to that customer kickoff call. And then, we basically have all the information, both from what the sales team and the pre-sales team has given us and some of the discovery the CSM may have done, during the kickoff to finalize a success plan, make sure that we get these quarterly sentiment updates from every account that is actually, or every role that is working with the customer, right? So if we still have a, solution consultant involved or, obviously an account executive, the CSM, so there's a sentiment that goes out that they would feel like how they're feeling the account is going, sort of a red, yellow, green. And then that actually also flows into then our, red account process, sort of a completely different workflow. And then, set up this.
I wanted to highlight that the main change that you've made this year is, first of all, a better process to share the right information with the CSM, because before they were sort of like in the dark. So you put a lot of requirements and change the process on how they're getting an account to give them the information they need to create one. And then you put this right at the gate, like as soon as they come in, they already have a success plan. A lot of us are doing the success plan after onboarding is complete. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then I want to take a quick question from Ian. He asked, how often do you realign on business outcomes with customers? So I think that takes us to the next slide where you actually talk about so in year one, they get the success plan right after they join. But what happens for clients that have been with you for 5, 6 years?
Yeah, so it is definitely from year 2 onwards an iterative process. So we just don't do this once at a customer, right? The beginning. It is a practice. It is really sort of the way of life of how we approach customer success. So we introduced the framework. And so year 2 onwards is the executive business reviews that we do quarterly. In some cases can get done monthly too with our really large customers that have, a lot of sub business units. So we introduced a framework via EBR, align the customer's business objectives and a success plan, from the information we get from that EBR and what we've discussed, then sort of identify those use cases, scope the technical work to meet those objectives that then our technical teams deliver on. You then, when you achieve that positive outcome and convert that into sort of that tangible dollar made, dollar saved outcome, that is then presented back to the customer in EBR, and then you sort of build it all back again. You align basically at the EBR, here's what you did in the last quarter, what are our goals that we've worked on and worked with your team for the next quarter, and then that goes into the success plan sort of to redefine those objectives and the workflows.
Disha, great presentation. I had actually a couple of questions. So what KPIs are you measured on? And then also, like, do the CSMs get comped on expansion and renewal? And by the way, I've built Splunk Customer Success, and now I'm working for a startup called Cribble, building out the customer success again. Thank you.
Awesome. And I'll tie that with Gemma's question. She had another interesting question that kind of ties to UVL's question around compensation. Not only just expansion and renewal, is the team being compensated on delivering outcomes, given this extensive process that you've built?
Yes, so that is a really important question, and I will say that we are like not where I want to be. So I actually start with that. We have really aligned our CSMs today on retention. So they do get comped, and their MBOs, the variable part of their MBOs is mainly on retention. So the quarterly retention rate. There is a small component of it, about 10%, that is based on adoption. The way we talk about this is, the work you're doing today in quarter is going to help you meet your retention goals, right? 2 quarters from now. So it's important you're doing this work, the value realization work, helping our customers adopt this quarter, and calling out risk, and making sure that health scorecard is there. We do need to look at this further. I would love to have just a lot more emphasis on achieving these outcomes as their main KPIs. I am also measured on, I have a budget to meet for a quarterly retention and churn rate, and that's basically what I'm measured on.
All right, Disha, thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining us. Have a beautiful day, and I look forward to seeing you next month.